Picture this. You've just dug up your potato harvest. Beautiful golden tubers, perfectly shaped, laid out on the soil. You're feeling a real sense of accomplishment, maybe even pride. But what if I told you that, right at this moment, you might be making a critical mistake? A mistake that could turn your perfect harvest into something truly toxic. Today, we're going to uncover the vital secret of potato storage that many home gardeners simply don't know, or perhaps don't talk about. And trust me, what you're about to discover will make you see this everyday vegetable in a whole new light. Potatoes seem utterly commonplace and safe to us, don't they? But it's crucial to remember that they belong to the nightshade family, the same family as notoriously poisonous plants like belladonna and datura. From the moment they start growing, potatoes have powerful defense mechanisms built right in. And our challenge? It's to avoid waking this sleeping beast. Let's delve into how we, often unknowingly, are actually causing our potatoes to produce these very toxins. All right, picture this. After an entire summer of hard work, worry, and dedicated care, there it is, your precious potato harvest laid out on the ground. The tubers are perfectly formed, firm, and still cloaked in earth. And your first, completely instinctive urge, of course, is to tidy them up. You want to grab a bucket of water or the garden hose, meticulously wash every single tuber until it gleams, then lay them out in neat rows in a sunny spot, allowing them to air out and dry off. This feels like the most logical and proper thing to do, doesn't it? But this is precisely the moment I need to stop you. Because that seemingly natural action is, in fact, the first and most critical mistake you can make. You might believe you're helping the potatoes by making them clean and drying their skins, but in reality, you're activating an ancient self-preservation mechanism, one as old as the earth itself. Potatoes, having spent their whole lives in the dark underground, interpret bright light as an alarm, a direct threat. It believes it's been found, and its main goal instantly becomes to make itself inedible. So what's the secret? Leave your potatoes dirty? Exactly. But it's not just about leaving them that way. There's a smart strategy involved. The crucial first step, which sets the stage for successful winter storage, is called curing. Crucially, this isn't done in direct sunlight, but strictly in the shade. Find a spot for your harvest under an overhang, in a well-ventilated shed, on a porch, or simply spread a tarp under a large sprawling tree. The golden rule is absolutely no direct sunlight. Spread the tubers out in a single layer, making sure they aren't touching too closely. Then simply let them sit there for several hours, or even better, an entire day. During this time, the soil on their skins will dry out and become brittle. It will start to flake off naturally, and any remaining bits can be easily brushed away with a soft brush or simply with gloved hands. This stage isn't primarily for cleanliness. It's all part of the curing process, designed to toughen up their skins. The skin becomes denser and any minor nicks or scratches sustained during harvest begin to heal. This essentially creates a natural protective barrier for the potatoes, shielding them from diseases during long-term storage. But now, let's talk about the main enemy lying in wait for your freshly harvested potatoes. This foe is cunning precisely because it appears so friendly, even beneficial. I'm talking about direct sunlight. Many gardeners fall for the myth that potatoes should be greened in the sun, believing this somehow improves their storage life and protects them from rot. You might have even heard this advice from neighbours or read it on gardening forums, but this is one of the most dangerous misconceptions out there. Even just a few hours under direct sunlight are enough to trigger an irreversible chemical reaction within the tubers. Potatoes are by nature an underground crop. Their entire biochemistry is designed for life in darkness. When suddenly exposed to light, their cells receive a powerful stress signal, screaming, "Alert! We're on the surface! Time to protect ourselves." And so, the potatoes actively start to defend themselves by producing substances designed to deter anything that might want to eat them. You simply wanted to dry your harvest, but instead, you've essentially turned your potatoes into a tiny chemical factory. So, what exactly happens inside a potato when it's exposed to light? The first thing you'll visually notice is a change in colour. The skin, and sometimes even the flesh, just beneath it, starts to take on a greenish tint. This happens because the potato cells, under the influence of light, especially UV, rapidly begin producing chlorophyll. That's right. This is the very pigment responsible for giving tree leaves their green colour and playing a key role in photosynthesis. The potato, sensing the light, essentially tries to transform itself from a mere storage organ into a fully fledged plant. It's like it thinks its job is no longer to just sit dormant underground, but to stretch towards the sun and generate energy. This is precisely why those green patches are, in essence, the potato's attempt to grow leaves right on its surface. And you might think, what's so bad about that? After all, we eat green lettuce, parsley, and dill, and they're all full of chlorophyll. But this is where the main catch lies. Chlorophyll itself is completely harmless to humans. However, when it comes to potatoes, it's merely a smoke signal pointing to a much bigger danger. You might look at a slightly green potato and think, oh, it's nothing serious, just a bit discoloured. I'll cut off the green part and it'll be fine. But that's precisely where you're making a dangerous mistake. Because that green colour is just the tip of the iceberg. It's a visual cue, an alarm bell the potato itself is ringing for us. Nature specifically designed this mechanism as a warning. Caution, I've become dangerous. The truth is, the process of producing chlorophyll goes hand in hand with another, much more sinister process. They are two sides of the same coin. When a potato is prompted to produce chlorophyll, it simultaneously starts producing another substance, a substance that acts as its primary defense mechanism. And that defense mechanism is a toxin. So when you see green on a potato, you need to understand it's not just a cosmetic flaw, it's a direct indication that the tuber has already begun accumulating toxins internally. That green colour is the potato's own little flag, waving at you and emphatically saying, stay away! So, let's give this invisible enemy a name. The substance that potatoes actively start synthesizing in light alongside chlorophyll is called solanine. Chemically, it's a glycoalkaloid, a potent natural toxin. Small amounts are always present in potatoes, especially in the skin and sprouts, as potatoes belong to the nightshade family. But while the tuber remains in the dark underground, its concentration is negligible and completely safe for humans. However, when exposed to sunlight, its production skyrockets, increasing 10, sometimes even 100-fold. Why does the potato need this? It's quite simple. It's its ingenious evolutionary survival strategy. Solanine possesses strong insecticidal and fungicidal properties. In other words, it repels insect pests and protects the tuber from fungal diseases and rot. Essentially, the potato creates a toxic shield around itself, ensuring nothing eats it before it can sprout and propagate. It's its built-in security system. And by exposing it to the sun, we're effectively pressing its alarm button. Let's not underestimate the danger. Solanine isn't just an unpleasant-tasting substance. It's a genuine poison, primarily affecting the human nervous and digestive systems. When it enters the body in significant quantities, it can cause some rather unpleasant symptoms of poisoning. Symptoms typically begin with a bitter taste in the mouth and a scratchy throat. This can be followed by nausea, vomiting, and stomach pains. But that's not all. Solanine can also destroy red blood cells and depress the central nervous system. Consequently, symptoms can also include headaches, dizziness, disorientation, and in severe cases, seizures, and even a coma. Of course, a fatal dose would require consuming several kilograms of raw, heavily greened potatoes, which is highly unlikely. However, even a small dose can cause significant discomfort, especially in children, the elderly, or individuals with compromised health. So, it's definitely not worth taking any chances. Now let's address the most common and dangerous myth that circulates among home gardeners. It goes like this. If a potato turns green, you can just cut off the green skin and flesh in a thick layer, and the rest is perfectly safe to eat. I'm sure many of you have done this, and perhaps you've gotten away with it, but it's a game of Russian roulette. The truth is, Solanine is an insidious poison. It doesn't just sit there, neatly confined to only the cells with green pigment. It has a nasty habit of migrating and penetrating deep into the potato tuber. You cut away the visible green part, but you can't visually determine how deeply the toxin has already spread into the white, seemingly perfectly normal flesh. Solanine particularly accumulates not only just beneath the skin, but also around the eyes, the points from which sprouts will eventually emerge. Even if the eyes haven't sprouted yet, the poison concentration there can already be high. So by cutting away the green parts, you're only removing a visible symptom, but you're not always eliminating the actual source of the danger. So, what if you've done everything right, but a part of your precious potato harvest has still turned green? I have to be completely honest with you here, even if the answer isn't what you'd like to hear. If a potato has only a slight green tinge, just a small spot on the side, and you plan to eat it immediately, you can carefully cut out that green area. Make sure to remove it with a generous margin, at least 1 centimetre deep and wide. However, if a significant portion of the tuber has turned green, perhaps half or even 1/3, then the only correct and safe answer is to throw that potato away. No regrets. Yes, it's a shame to waste your hard work, but believe me, your health and the health of your family are far more valuable. Don't bother trying to cook out the Solanine. It's heat stable and practically indestructible through boiling or frying. Don't even try to feed these tubers to livestock. Animals can get poisoned too. The only safe use for such potatoes is as seed potatoes for the following year. Their toxicity in this case actually becomes an advantage. They'll be better protected from pests in the soil. But for consumption, absolutely not. Okay, we've addressed the mistakes. So how do we get it right? Let's move on to creating the ideal conditions for our potatoes' winter slumber. The main rule stemming from everything we've just discussed is complete, absolute darkness. I want to emphasize that word. Absolute. This isn't just the dimness of a pantry where a stray light from the hallway occasionally peeks in. It's not a box on the balcony, covered with a thin cloth that still lets sunlight penetrate. The perfect storage spot for potatoes is somewhere that's as dark as the depths of the earth where they grew. Any light source, even brief and dim, can trigger the production of Solanine. Of course, the process will be slower than under bright summer sun, but it will happen. Over several months of storage, even in semi-darkness, the concentration of this toxin can reach dangerous levels. Therefore, your first task when organising storage is to ensure 100% light exclusion. A root cellar, a basement, or truly opaque containers, all of these serve one main purpose: to trick the potatoes into believing they are still in their natural element, safe underground. The second crucial factor, working hand in hand with darkness, is temperature. Like any living organism, potatoes respire. The higher the temperature, the more intensely all metabolic processes occur within the tuber. They quickly consume their stored nutrients, begin to wilt, lose moisture, and prepare for sprouting. To slow these processes and essentially put the potatoes into a state of deep dormancy, a cool environment is essential. The ideal temperature range for long-term storage is considered to be between 2 and 4 degrees Celsius. This temperature keeps the potatoes in their most optimal state for preservation. If the temperature drops below this, closer to 0 degrees Celsius, the starch within the tubers will begin to convert into sugar. This will make the potatoes taste noticeably sweeter, and they will quickly darken and burn when cooked or fried. Conversely, if the temperature rises above 5 or 6 degrees Celsius, it signals the tubers to awaken. They'll start actively sprouting, expending all their stored energy and nutrients on developing shoots. And as we've previously noted, the concentration of Solanine also significantly increases in sprouted potatoes. Therefore, a stable, cool temperature is the second cornerstone of successful potato storage. The third, and often forgotten critical element, is ventilation. Potatoes are living organisms and they breathe. As they respire, potatoes release moisture and carbon dioxide. If stored in a sealed, unventilated space, like a tightly tied plastic bag, An unhealthy environment will quickly form inside. Elevated humidity and high carbon dioxide concentrations create ideal conditions for mold, fungi, and various types of rot to thrive. You've likely seen what happens to potatoes left in a bag for a couple of weeks. They become wet, slimy, and develop an unpleasant odour. This is a direct result of inadequate ventilation. To prevent this, potatoes need to breathe. Air must circulate freely among the potatoes, carrying away any excess moisture. This is precisely why solid, airtight containers are unsuitable for storage. Instead, opt for specialised containers with proper ventilation. These can include slatted wooden crates, woven baskets, mesh bags, or perforated plastic containers. The key is to ensure a continuous supply of fresh air reaches your harvest. Let's quickly recap one crucial thing to avoid. Never, under any circumstances, store your potatoes in hermetically sealed plastic bags. This is the quickest way to spoil them. Potatoes will literally suffocate in these bags. They'll start to sweat, and in a short time, instead of firm tubers, you'll end up with a slimy, rotting mess. The best choice is to opt for time-tested, breathable materials. Wooden crates, built with small gaps between the planks, are ideal. Wood naturally regulates moisture and ensures proper air circulation. Woven baskets made from wicker or rattan also work exceptionally well. If you have a large harvest, special mesh bags are a good option for storage. These provide maximum ventilation, but remember, they don't protect the potatoes from light. Therefore, it's essential to store these bags in a completely dark room. If you opt for plastic crates, choose only those with numerous ventilation holes on all sides and the bottom. Remember this simple rule: containers for storing potatoes should always be slatted or perforated, never solid. Another common, yet fundamentally mistaken way people store potatoes is in a regular household refrigerator. Many assume that because it's cool, it's an ideal storage spot. However, that's a significant mistake. Standard refrigerators typically maintain temperatures between 0 and 5 degrees Celsius, but often drop as low as 2, or even 1 degree. As we've discussed, at these very low, near freezing temperatures, a chemical process begins in potatoes, converting starch into sugar. This is the tuber's natural defense mechanism against the cold. As a result, the potatoes develop an unpleasant sweet taste that can spoil any dish. Furthermore, this increased sugar content causes the potatoes to brown and become bitter very quickly when fried or baked, often before they're even cooked through on the inside. On top of all this, refrigerators typically have high humidity and poor air circulation, neither of which is good for the potatoes. Therefore, a refrigerator is for storing cooked food, not for the long-term storage of raw potatoes. Now let's talk about some storage etiquette for your veggies. Potatoes can be quite finicky and don't get along with all their storage companions. Their arch nemesis, onions. Many of us, out of habit, store them together in the same bin or on the same pantry shelf. It's so convenient to have all your veggies in one spot, right? But that's a big no-no. Here's why. As onions sit in storage, they release specific volatile compounds and gases. These compounds act like a growth stimulant for potatoes. Sensing the onions nearby, potatoes get a wake-up call and start sprouting aggressively, even if your storage area is quite cool. The result? A significantly shortened shelf life for your spuds. But this arrangement isn't good for the onions either. They start absorbing the excess moisture released by the potatoes and end up rotting much faster. It's one of those rare cases where two perfectly good vegetables, when stored together, create absolutely terrible conditions for each other. So remember this simple rule. Always store your potatoes and onions separately, and ideally, as far away from each other as possible. So, where's the magic spot? That ideal place to store your potato harvest for the winter? The classic, time-honoured choice, of course, is a good cellar or basement. It's in these spaces that you can most easily create those three ideal conditions: complete darkness, a stable cool temperature of around 2 to 4 degrees Celsius, and excellent natural ventilation. If you're lucky enough to have such a cellar, consider half the battle won. The main thing is to prepare it properly, dry it out in advance, disinfect it, and ensure it's completely free of rodents. Potatoes are best stored in wooden bins or crates in the cellar, ideally elevated slightly off the floor. This allows for crucial air circulation from underneath. Never pile potatoes directly onto a concrete or dirt floor. They'll quickly absorb moisture and spoil. A properly prepared cellar is like a 5-star hotel for your harvest, keeping it perfectly fresh until spring arrives. But what if you're a city dweller and a root cellar is simply out of the question? Does that mean you'll be stuck buying potatoes from the grocery store all winter long? Don't despair, there's a solution. You can create perfectly acceptable storage conditions even in a regular apartment. The best option is an insulated but unheated balcony or loggia. These spaces typically maintain a suitable temperature range. You'll need a large, opaque container, such as a wooden crate or a sturdy plastic bin. You can further insulate it from the inside with styrofoam or foam board to protect your harvest from sudden temperature fluctuations and unexpected frosts. Cover the container tightly with a lid or several layers of dark, thick fabric to completely block out all light. With this DIY mini cellar, your potatoes can be stored for quite a long time. The key is to periodically check on them and make sure the temperature on your balcony doesn't dip below freezing. If you don't have a balcony, or if it's too warm, you'll need to find the coolest, darkest spot right inside your apartment. Often, this means a pantry or a hallway closet, far from any central heating radiators. Of course, the temperature there will likely be above the ideal, probably around 15–18 degrees Celsius, so potatoes won't last exceptionally long, a month or two at most. But even in these conditions, you can extend their shelf life. Use breathable containers like burlap or canvas bags or woven baskets. Place them in the darkest possible corner. You can even cover the container with a dark cloth to completely block out any light. Here's another tip. Layer the potatoes in their container with rowan or mint leaves. Their natural compounds, phytoncides, can slightly slow down sprouting and rotting. Of course, this isn't a root cellar, but it's a perfectly viable temporary solution for storing a small batch of potatoes. The main thing is to remember the 3 key rules: darkness, coolness, and good air circulation. And finally, before your harvest settles in for its well-deserved winter slumber, comes the critically important step of thorough sorting. Never just indiscriminately dump all your freshly dug potatoes into storage crates. Instead, take the time to carefully inspect every single tuber. Your task is to ruthlessly discard anything that raises even the slightest doubt. Look for potatoes with cuts from the shovel, wormholes or dark spots that could be signs of blight or scab. Pay particular attention to any soft, bruised or rotting potatoes. Remember the golden rule of storage. Just one bad potato can quickly contaminate and spoil an entire crate of healthy ones in a matter of weeks. It truly is a case of one rotten apple spoiling the whole barrel. So all these rejects or subpar potatoes should be put into a separate container. These are not suitable for long-term storage. Instead, they should be used first, after carefully trimming away any damaged sections. Only premium, absolutely healthy, dry and flawless potatoes should make it into your long-term storage. This rigorous screening process is your guarantee of successful storage and a fresh harvest come spring. And now for the crucial twist. We've been talking about Solanine as a poison, an enemy, but in reality it's a brilliant survival mechanism created by nature. When a potato senses light, it thinks it's on the surface. Its mission isn't to be eaten, but to reproduce. It turns green to start photosynthesis and simultaneously produces this toxin to deter anyone who might want to feast on its tubers. Essentially, a green potato is shouting at us, "Don't eat me, I'm trying to grow." History records instances of mass solanine poisoning, when during times of famine, people disregarded this rule and consumed large quantities of green potatoes. This isn't just a simple gardening tip, it's knowledge rooted in biochemistry and tragic historical experience. So, let's recap. The main, fatal mistake when storing potatoes is keeping them in the light. Even brief exposure to light triggers the production of toxic solanine. Remember these 3 golden rules: dark, cool, and dry. Follow them and you'll keep your harvest tasty, healthy, and most importantly, safe. Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. I hope you learned something new and useful. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on other important tips and tricks. Now, a question for you. Have you ever come across a green potato? What did you do with it? Did you cut off the green parts or just throw it away? Share your story in the comments below. Let's discuss.